Dear Deputy Minister, colleagues, partners and guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me first thank you for attending this event that was organized within the frame of the European Union funded project Support to Agriculture and Food Policy Implementation. I would like to compliment the organizers of the event, because it's never very easy to organize such a crowded event, especially within the current circumstances. And I wanted to thank them for providing me the opportunity of these very short welcoming remarks. If we remember well, on the occasion of the high-level dialogue on agriculture between the European Union and Ukraine that took place last year in Kyiv on 15 May 2019, issues related to organic production was chosen as the main theme for the discussion. And it reflects basically an increased interest of Ukrainian producers, Ukrainian authorities in such added value products and markets. The postponement of this year's high-level dialogue has left, due to the COVID situation, has left us without possibilities of following up. Hence the importance of today's webinar. That allows us, or provides us the opportunity of sharing with a wider audience the European Union Farm to Fork strategy under the Green Deal, and notably the latest development in what concerns organic farming, product circulation and controls within the European Union. Last year, we've seen with our colleagues from DG Agri, who are kindly participating today as well, that the organic system that worked in the past within very restricted geographical perimeters, and that implied an almost direct link between the producer and the consumer, hence a very short value chain from farm to fork, has become nowadays increasingly complex and has led to an increased level of risks throughout the entire value chains. To efficiently address these risks and new challenge, the European Union is constantly adapting its legislation and procedures, including in what concerns the respective roles of the European Commission and the member state competent authorities. Hence the importance of such roundtables for Ukrainian producers and stakeholders in the organic value chains to receive first-hand information, especially since the organic legislation in Ukraine is in the process of changing very swiftly and is becoming every day closer to the one in the European Union. Through our bilateral cooperation, the European Union delegation has been actively supporting Ukraine these past 2 years in its approximation effort, notably through the development and the adoption of the so-called organic law that entered into force in August 2019, already a year ago, and for which secondary legislation is currently being finalized. And I know that the project, along with other projects, our German colleagues, are working intensively with the ministry in order basically to align our Ukrainian legislation with the European Union one on different topics and subjects, and we hope that this legislation is going to be further improved and finalized in the coming month. However, having said that, the adoption of the legislation is one side of the coin, and in order to further secure the access to a market as demanding as the one of the European Union is, Ukraine has necessarily to pursue its efforts through the establishment and strengthening of its institutions, notably those in charge of control and monitoring of the organic sector and trade of organic products, as well as the tools that are put in place to increase effectiveness and especially the transparency of these controls to make sure that the products at the end of the value chain is genuinely organic. I hope that today's meeting is going to contribute further spreading knowledge about this highly valuable market and the legislative and institutional change it implies in terms of controls. Let me wish you a successful event and a very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I hope that you have got what I said in Ukrainian, because I'm just like talking to a wall there. Thank you very much.
Дякую, Бен. Так, це дійсно важко онлайн зараз працювати, коли ти не бачиш перед собою людей. Але я сподіваюся, що нас всі добре чують і бачать також. Я, звісно, з задоволенням передаю слово для привітання пану Тарасу Висоцькому, заступнику міністра Міністерства розвитку економіки, торгівлі та сільського господарства України. Пане Тарасе.
Доброго дня, шановні учасники. Насправді, перше, органічний сектор, він був, є і залишається в пріоритеті державної аграрної політики. Фактично, я повністю погоджуюся з виступом пана Гела, що першочергове завдання – це забезпечити споживача як вітчизняного внутрішнього, так і зовнішнього при експорті чіткою, достовірною інформацією про якість продукції і її походження. Для того, щоб це реалізувати, законопроект був прийнятий, вступив в дію, більшість нормативно-правових актів вже прийняті, ще 30% розроблені і проходять процедуру прийому в липні-серпні. Наша ціль до вересня це все реалізувати. То після завершення цього блоку фактично ми можемо переходити до активного фазу нарощування. І тут вже треба дійсно розділяти дві стратегії. Ми говоримо, що в нас є експортний ринок, він є дуже важливий, і Європейський Союз як ринок є номер один для України. Дійсно, для того, щоб будувати стратегію, а ми знаємо, що виробництво органічної продукції – це стратегія не на рік, це стратегія на 7-10 років. Треба чітко розуміти, яка стратегія на європейському ринку на аналогічні періоди. І важливо почути і інтегровувати, що вже заплановано до 2030 року, і завжди мати в себе в пам'яті цілі, зазначені до 2050 року. Тому цей семінар і обговорення дуже корисним для цього блоку. Друге, ми пам'ятаємо, що в нас є суттєво нереалізований потенціал внутрішнього ринку, і знову ж правила, вони фактично будуть за декілька місяців вже повністю затверджені. Споживач матиме можливість вибирати, буде проінформований. Всі виробники матимуть можливість також офіційно виробляти і підтверджувати. І залишається недостатня ємність цього ринку. Для того, щоб підтримати виробників органічної продукції, ми як міністерство офіційно підтримуємо і очікуємо, що цього року буде змінено законодавство, і ми зможемо запустити в тому числі програми державної підтримки виробників органічної продукції вже з 2021 року. Є амбітна ціль ще встигнути цього року, але дивлячись на реальну ситуацію розгляду в парламенті, скоріш за все, це вже буде 2021 рік. Хоча пам'ятаємо, якщо буде прийнято раніше, ми все зробимо, щоб реалізувати при першій нагоді. Тому фактично виробники органічної продукції будуть проінформовані за сьогоднішнім результатом, який розвиток, які тенденції розвитку в європейських країнах. Почули, що ми також ставимо пріоритети, будемо підтримувати на внутрішньому ринку. Ми фіналізуємо, і тут дуже вдячні за підтримку європейських колег і за проект, тому що об'єктивно без цієї підтримки ми б це не змогли зробити. Всі правила гри на рівні нормативно-правових документів і можемо просто далі активно розвивати, обмінюватися досвідом і підтримувати один одного. Я бажаю відповідно всім за рахунок сьогоднішньої дискусії дійсно цю картинку тенденцій, перспектив європейського ринку Європейського Союзу як експортного собі окреслити. І будемо далі спільно працювати для розвитку органічного виробництва в Україні. Дякую.
Дякую, пане Тарасе. Я прошу перейти до привітального слова пана Сергія Черниша. Це провідний експерт з питань розробки сільськогосподарської політики та регуляторної реформи проєкту ЄС.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone who watches us and hears us. We are now 76 people already online. If you don't mind, you will watch me for a couple of more seconds, as we have got 4 people connected to this webinar from office premises. To avoid any technicalities, I suggest we leave only Katerina to start, and then I will make my speech just on mute mode only. So, dear participants of the Farm to Fork webinar, EU-funded support to agriculture and food policy implementation project is really pleased to host this interesting event today, which was initiated, as Katerina said, by our Ukrainian counterparts interested in further development of organic production in Ukraine. And I want to express our thanks to our European colleagues from DG Agri for agreeing to share with us the EU strategy for the development of the European agriculture until 2030. For Ukraine, trying to expand the markets, it will be very helpful, no doubt, to understand the European vision for agriculture and prepare the sector for upcoming challenges. And it is not yet another message how important it is to have a vision, have long-term and mid-term strategies for the development of the agricultural sector. For a minute, I want all of us to go back to 2014, to the time when single and comprehensive strategy and action plan for agriculture and rural development for 2015-2020 was developed. We all know that the strategy was approved by the National Reform Council, Public Council of the Ministry of Agricultural Policy, but it was never officially endorsed, unfortunately. But nevertheless, it was a useful exercise. I've gone through the list of registered participants with Katerina this morning and noted that at least 8 people registered for this webinar participated very actively in the preparation of this document, and were working in subgroup 8.2, organic agriculture production, within group 8, environmental management. And many of you perhaps remember the words of some Ukrainian officials said during our organic lunch, which was very beautiful, and that was the first time I tried Ukrainian organic ice cream. Thanks Natalia Prokopchuk, thanks Elena Berezovska for that. But during this organic lunch, a couple of officials said that organic production for Ukraine is a rocket science, and this organic spaceship will not fly in this country potentially for coming 10-15 years at least. But the recent result that we witnessed of Ukraine's organic sector development showed that the contrary, and proved again that we should never say never. And on the eve of this event, I rechecked the expected results and concrete actions suggested at the time on legal aspects, on policy dialogue, institutional development, business environment and trade, capacity building, science, communication and promotion. And as respected Deputy Minister Taras Vysotsky said, at least 1/3 of the planned main 35 measures indicated in that program have been accomplished. And thanks to cooperation and joint position of main organic stakeholders in Ukraine, Ministry of Agricultural Policy and Food at that time, and now Ministry for the Development of Economy, Trade and Agriculture, Organic Federation of Ukraine, Organic Ukraine Union of Producers of Certified Products, Information Center, Green Dossier, a number of NGOs and technical assistance projects funded by EU, Swiss State Secretariat of Economic Affairs, and German-Ukrainian cooperation in organic agriculture. EU support to agriculture and policy implementation project was really honored to take off a flag stock from other European projects that were implemented before, Swiss in particular, FIBO, and to lead further activities aimed to create a legal framework for organic development in Ukraine and its approximation with the EU Commission and Council regulations and directives as per Chapter 17, Section 5, and Annex 38 of the EU Association Agreement, if I am right. If not, Ben will correct me. And as you know, in 2019, the law of Ukraine 2496 on basic principle and requirements to organic production, circulation and labeling of organic products was registered, approved, and from August 2nd, 2019, it is in force. And 12 sub-legal acts either have been already developed, approved, or on its way for furtherance of this law. Again, many thanks for our data partners, Swiss and German colleagues, for cooperation, support, and ongoing training, professional knowledge sharing, and public awareness campaign. And the recent developments in Ukrainian organic agri-sector proves that we are really stronger together. And now I suggest we switch to the essence of our today's gathering, see what is waiting for Ukrainian agri-sector ahead of us. And now the floor is yours, Katerina. We are all in attention. Thanks.
Дякую, пане Сергію. Насправді далі слово не Катерині, а все-таки нашим шановним представникам Європейської комісії, які зголосилися взяти участь в цьому заході і безпосередньо розказати нам про нову стратегію, про ті амбітні цілі, які закладені в стратегії щодо розвитку органічного виробництва, а також останніх результатів, які були нещодавно оприлюднені Європейською комісією щодо імпорту органічної продукції до ЄС і яку роль грає якраз Україна в цьому процесі. Насамперед я хочу передати слово пані Алісі Тіган, яка розповість більш детально про саму стратегію.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. I hope everybody can hear me. As one of the speakers before said, it's not very easy speaking to just a screen or a blank wall, but at least I see Katerina live on the video. So thanks a lot for the invitation, and thank you very much for your interest in this topic, because I see from the number of participants that it's really an impressive interest, and we are very happy to be here. So we send you virtual greetings from our offices in Brussels. As you know, Farm to Fork strategy, together with also biodiversity strategy, are two of the biggest deliverables of this year of the Commission. They were adopted in quite difficult circumstances. It was literally, we were in the midst of COVID pandemic. All the work, all the preparations that we have done for this strategy had to then take into account and factor also the impacts of the COVID crisis on the European economy, on European agriculture and society in general. So just to start with, maybe Katerina, we move to the first slide. Yes, just to put this Farm to Fork in a bit wider perspective. So you have probably all heard about the European Green Deal. So this is a flagship initiative. It's a big initiative of this Commission, which was adopted in 2019. And this is the one which sets the ambition for the European economy and for the European society for the next literally for the next decade. So, but this is not only, European Green Deal is not only about transforming our economy, it's about also transforming our society. And if you see, all aspects of European economy are expected to contribute to this Green Deal. We are not talking here only about agriculture, we are talking about energy efficiency, we are talking about transport, and we are talking about us as individuals as well in terms of what we do, what options we take. So Farm to Fork, as you can see, is one of the deliverables of this Green Deal. And it's the one which really puts at the focus a vision on how to transform the way we produce, how we distribute, transport, and consume our food. So it's actually a very, very holistic approach looking at the food. It's kind of a new EU food policy. And we are not looking in isolation anymore at different policies. So we are not looking at agriculture on one side, on health on the other side. This is bringing it all together. We are looking at the production side, at the farmers, what the farmers can do. We are looking at what the retail can do, what food processors can do in this process, and also what the consumers can do. Because the strategy is very clear that the consumers and their choices can, to a large extent, also drive and influence what is produced and put on the market. So this is very important for the organic products and for the discussion we will have today. So the point of this package, of this strategy, is to make sustainability a trademark. So to make it really prominent, because European food is already well known for its quality, for safety, but sustainability should be part of this trademark. Next slide, Katerina, please. So we talk a lot about sustainability. Just here very briefly, I don't want to spend too much time. I just want to explain what do we mean, because there are, when we talk about sustainable food systems, we do not talk only about environment and climate, as some people might understand. It's equally about the economic and also social aspects of sustainability. So on one hand, we want to deliver on environmental sustainability. We want to limit the impact of food production and consumption on the environment. But at the same time, there are economic aspects which matter here as well. So we want to ensure that farmers can make a living with their farming activity, and also enable them to explore also the opportunities which come from all of this green transition. We're looking also at the social aspects of sustainability in this process, which we must cover healthier diets. We are thinking about vital rural and coastal areas. We are thinking about better animal welfare. We are also talking about a just transition for those which are most concerned by this process. So this is indeed a challenge. We have three aspects. We have economic, we have environmental, and we have social. And this is what this strategy wants to address, all three of them, because, and it is, of course, it's challenging, because can you have a high environmental ambition without having an impact on how much you produce? Or will all of this lead to an increase in food prices and so on? So these are all the considerations which come with this, but we have to look at the sustainability from all three aspects. Next slide, Katerina, please. Just very briefly, you have here an illustration of the challenges that this farm to fork strategy wants to address. If you look at the social side, we want the challenges to make the diets of Europeans healthier and also more sustainable, because we have a paradox in Europe where on one hand we have a lot of overweight and obesity, while on the other hand we have also people who cannot afford proper nutrition. Then there are also challenges related to social rights of workers, food affordability, animal welfare, and so on. In terms of environmental challenges, of course, tackling climate change, reducing biodiversity loss, reducing food losses and waste. All of these are now key challenges that the strategy wants to address. And then again, from looking at the economic side, we want also farmers to have fair and also better incomes. Currently, the income of farmers is well below the other sectors. We also want to attract young people to farming. We also want to protect our environment so that for the future we will ensure that there is food production. And at the same time, we also want to stimulate new and green business models and job opportunities. So all of these are aspects which the strategy looks at and tries to address. Next slide, please, Katerina. So just very briefly, what do we want to achieve with this strategy? So clearly, as I have said, there are different aspects of sustainability, but primarily we want to reduce the environmental and climate footprint of the food systems. And you will see later on when I explain a bit the targets, you will see a clear ambition there. We want to also work and lead globally this global transition, and we will come back to that as well. We want to explore new opportunities, because this is not only about imposing new obligations or restrictions. This is about also taking and grasping what comes with this green transition and using this to the benefit of the farmers. And we also want to create a robust and resilient food system. This last aspect, as I said, became very prominent with the COVID pandemic, where our food supply chain was challenged in a way, not in terms of the quantity of food we had, but it was more in terms of the functioning of the internal market, transport, logistics. So this last aspect became very prominent with the COVID pandemic. So this is very briefly on the goals and the general setting. So I want to dig deeper into the essence of the strategy. So Katarina, please, next slide. So I have mentioned now the challenges. I have mentioned also what are the goals that we want to achieve. And several, if you look at the strategy, several aspects in actions under the Farm to Fork strategy are targeted at reducing the impact of food production on natural environment. So in fact, the new logic is to produce more with less input. So, and what does this mean? Well, probably one of the most talked about aspects of the strategy are these targets, which we have set with this communication. And this will, of course, affect the way how the food is produced in Europe, how much input is used in order to produce food. I have to say from the beginning that these targets are not legally binding. I will explain later on. There will be a whole process which will follow this, but this is a political direction of the European Commission, and it's a vision for the future. So it's they're not legally binding, but they have a very heavy political dimension to them. So on the targets, as you can see, we have set 4 quantitative targets, but there are also other very important objectives in this strategy which are not quantitative, but they're equally important. First of all, we want to reduce the use and risk of chemical pesticides and also those which are more hazardous pesticides. So here we have put the target of 50%. And secondly, we are talking also about fertilizers, reducing the use of fertilizers by at least 20% and also nutrient losses by 50%. Thirdly, we want to reduce the sales of antimicrobials for farmed animals and also aquaculture by 50%. So here, this is also reducing antimicrobial resistance is one of the big aspects of this strategy. And last but not least, finally, the strategy also wants to bring at least 25% of EU's agricultural land under organic farming. So this really brings us to the heart of today's discussion, and which will be of very high interest to you. So these are the key quantitative targets which have raised a lot of debate and discussion in the European Union, how to get there and how to achieve this. As you can see, they're quite ambitious, but we think that it's only with high ambition that you can also drive the change that we want to see. So next slide, Katarina. Thank you. So now turning to the organic, this slide presents more or less the state of play, the baseline. As you can see, as I have said, organic farming is one of the cornerstones of this new vision from the farm to fork. So why organic? As you will hear from next presentation from Elena, she will touch upon all the market aspects. It's a growing market. It's a very prosperous market. And also it's a farming practice that is also environmentally sustainable, but also offers economic opportunities for European farmers and for farmers in general. So this is why the organic has kind of become a symbol of what we are trying to achieve with the farm to fork strategy. So it brings together the environmental, also the social and the economic aspects together. Where do we stand in Europe at the moment? We are at 8% of agricultural land under organic farming, and the ambition is to go to at least 25. Is this ambitious? Yes, it's very ambitious, and especially given the fact that there are very different starting points and positions across member states. We have some member states who are very close to achieving this target already now, while others have still quite a way to go. So this was only to illustrate where we are at the moment. This one, I will not spend too much time on this slide. This is more to tell you about the baseline and the indicators that we use. It might be useful for any documents that you're preparing or just for the sake of interest. So all data sources on the basis of which we will monitor the progress of this target will be based on Eurostat data. The baseline we have chosen at the moment is 2018. And you see the indicators. Now yes, Katarina, you can move on to the next slide. Now moving on to the very important question, how will we achieve this target? As I said, it's very ambitious. So the absolute priority of what we want to do in the next 10 years is to ensure that the supply for organic products meets consumer demand, so that there is to maintain the sector in balance. We don't want to see major differences between demand on one side and the supply. If there would be, for example, oversupply, this would also, and low demand, this would have an impact on the prices, on the profitability. So the key is to maintain, to ensure that the supply and the demand side are growing in tandem, in parallel. As we have seen from some successful examples in member states like Denmark, they have applied a strategy of a mix of pull and push measures. Push being measures which are mostly coming from the public side, supporting greater uptake of the scheme by the farmers, supporting conversion to organic farming, supporting also maintenance, development of new practices, training, and so on. And here we have quite some tools in the European Union. As you all know, common agriculture policy is quite a comprehensive policy, and it has a number of tools to support organic farming. And this will continue also for the new common agriculture policy, which is still under discussions. So member states have an option of supporting organic farming either through more rural development measures. We have also new schemes which are called eco schemes, which can be also used. So there are a number of measures. Of course, also organic regulation, as Elena will probably later speak about. Then we have also a lot of focus on research, innovation, farm advisory services. So all of this will come, should give a push to the development of the supply side of the organic production. And on the other side, there is, of course, we need to really strongly work on stimulating a strong demand and uptake of organic products. Consumers are a real driver of change. So sustainability is bankable, but only when consumers demand it. So we need to have a very strong demand. And as you will see later on, we will work on from different strands. As we have indicated here, there is a new action plan which is coming up, and it's Elena and her unit and the colleagues who are working on this. And this action plan should actually look at this, on how to really support both the supply side and also the demand side for organic products. But I don't know, maybe Elena will say a couple of words more on this later on. Next slide, please. So here I wanted just to illustrate, I said before, we are not setting only targets. We don't just say, okay, these are the targets, you reach them. There are a number of actions that will come from the European side, from the Commission, in order to support member states and the farmers to really get on the path of this transition and to achieve these targets. We are talking about 27 different actions only, which are in the action plan, and even more. So we are talking about really tens of different actions that you can expect and you will see coming from our side in the next couple of years. First, of course, support, as I said, supporting organic production through agriculture policy will be the key. And you see in the first box, we are talking about recommendations to member states. This is fairly specific for the EU because I will not dwell too much on it, but we are working with member states in order to see how they will then translate these targets into their national plans, because member states are preparing national strategic plans for the next programming period, where they assess the situation in their country, they identify what are their needs, and also they design what kind of interventions they want to have in the future. So here we are now working with member states, and we will issue them recommendations, what we think from our side should be the priorities in the country. And here, for example, if we see that a member state has a very low share of organic farming, the Commission might come up with a recommendation to member state to consider this and also to set national values. Then there are other actions. You see, we will also revise a directive on sustainable use of pesticides. We will work on revising also our legislation in order to facilitate plant protection products which contain biological active substances. I have already mentioned this very important action plan for the organic sector to stimulate the supply and demand. And also we will work on the integrated nutrient management plan, which is related more to the target on fertilizers. So this is only one part of the actions that we will do. Katarina, next slide, please. So there are also a number of other initiatives which are coming up, which don't have necessarily quantified targets, but they are equally important. For example, we will also look into revising the animal welfare legislation, including sensitive aspects of transport and slaughter of animals. And in addition, in relation to animal welfare, we're looking also into options of establishing animal welfare labeling, which could also help the farmers to benefit from the highest animal standards that they apply. Then there will be also revision of the feed additives. We are also looking into how to help the farmers and primary producers in order to support their position in the food chain. So in fact, how to enhance their competitiveness and also enhance cooperation between farmers. And also what you see on the far right is Farm Sustainability Data Network. We are looking into how to beef up our support to farmers, especially through data and advice on sustainable farming practices. So this is just an overview for you that you know also what is coming up and what will affect the European food production in the future. Next slide, please, Katarina. So I have mentioned several times today demand and the consumers and how important this will be. So this is in the Farm to Fork strategy, you will see there is really stimulating the demand for sustainable products is a big focus of this strategy, because the consumers can themselves really influence and also drive the type of food which is produced. And we see that there is a growing demand for sustainable products, and we want to stimulate this even further. There are several measures which are interesting here. They're highlighted also for the organic sector. One, for example, if you look at the criteria for sustainable food procurement, because at the European level we have rules on public procurement. So we will look into those rules to see how to make it easier to support green public procurement. And this would also help to increase the share of organic products in, for example, public catering systems, canteens, schools, and so on. We also at the EU level operate the school scheme program, which consists of providing fruit and vegetables and milk to children, supported through EU funding. So there will be a review of these schemes as well, in order to see how we can bring more sustainable products to schools. And here, of course, organic will play a role as well. Then also we will look into our promotion program, because this was one of the highly discussed aspects of the strategy, whether the EU should continue promoting meat consumption or not. So we will look into how to use the European funding, because these are schemes supported by EU funds, to better promote sustainable products, including, of course, organic products, which already feature quite heavily in our promotion campaigns. So if I can, and also you see a couple of other initiatives, we will work more on origin indication and also providing information to consumers on the nutritional aspects of their food. So mandatory front of pack nutrition labeling. We will also look into developing, but this is in a couple of years, a sustainable food labeling framework. So this would all help the consumers when they see the product, to inform them that they have enough information and they can make their own choices. This is not about telling people what to eat, but it's more about providing the environment where they can choose the products. They have sufficient information and they can make their choices based on this. So if I can recap the last couple of slides, there are a lot of actions which are coming up, as I have said. So it's not only about setting obligations, but it's really putting the whole environment in place, public policy supporting the transition to sustainable food systems. So this is why we have so many actions in place. Next slide, Katerina. Very briefly on what we see as the benefits and opportunities for the farmers, because as I said, sustainability should be profitable, should be bankable, of course, if the consumers are willing to pay for it. So there are higher returns. We expect higher returns for the farmers with all these actions working together. We also expect stronger position to work on the stronger position of farmers in the food supply chain. Also work on increasing the productivity through innovation, technology, digital solutions, and also recognition of quality, because as I said, we will work on sustainable food labeling framework so that the consumers can recognize the nutritional, the climate, environmental, and social aspects of food. So last two slides to touch upon a bit on our global action. So as you can see already from the Green Deal, it's clear that it cannot be EU acting alone, and we can never successfully achieve the transition towards sustainable food systems if we work alone. So we don't want also to shift environmental problems over across our borders to other parts of the world. So this is why the strong focus both of the Green Deal and Farm to Fork is to work together with our neighbors, with our trading partners, in order really to make this global, raise standards, sustainability standards globally. And we have different possibilities, different levels of cooperation, of course, international cooperation, either bilaterally, multilaterally. We also want to focus on building green alliances on sustainable food systems, especially in the run-up to the 2021 UN Food Systems Summit, and also work together through international standard setting bodies like Codex Alimentarius on, and also promotion of sustainable food system, international events and international fora. And the last slide is touching upon some new elements which come from the Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy. Next one, Katerina, please. Does it work? Yes, it works. So just maybe I focus on the second bullet point there. As I said, we will work at the EU level of establishing a legislative framework for sustainable food systems, which will combine also sustainability, possible sustainability labeling actions, so that also imported products that respect high environmental standards could profit from the label at the EU level. So there are a couple of new elements also in terms of when assessing the requests for imports of pesticide substances. Also, there will be environmental aspects that will be taken into account when assessing those requests. So there are a couple of new elements which are brought forward already by the Green Deal and also Farm to Fork strategy. But in general, I think this very strong drive to work with our partners and neighbors in raising the standards globally is a very predominant feature of both documents. So I have given you a very, well, maybe not very quick, but I tried to cover all the major aspects because this is a very comprehensive document. And now also with the presentation from Elena, you will have a very thorough look at what is going on at the European level. So if there would be any questions either today or later in writing, we would be very happy to answer them. It's a very comprehensive package with a lot of initiatives. So I did not have time to explain everything in detail, but we can always come back to any specific interests that you might have. So thank you very much for listening to me for quite a while.
Дякую, Аліса. Я пропоную, щоб ми послухали все ж всі презентації і вже після того задавали питання нашим шановним доповідачам, тому що далі, напевно, будуть відповіді на деякі питання з боку пані Єлени. Як вже говорила Аліса, пані Єлена нам більше розкаже якраз про те, що відбувається в органічному секторі, адже вона представляє відділ безпосередньо, який займається органічним виробництвом в Європейському Союзі. Прошу, Єлена, чуєте нас?
Good morning to everybody. My name is Elena Panicchi and I'm the Deputy Head of Unit of Organics. I am very glad to participate to this meeting because I really think that it's very important to talk about organics, to really go in depth into this topic and promote organics as a sustainable agricultural technique. Ukraine is a strong producer and a strong partner for the European Union for organics, and we will see it later on the figures. So this presentation is very comprehensive about organic sector in the EU. I will show you also the latest results on the EU, and then I will go more in the political dimension, talking about the new organic regulation and the implication of the farm to fork strategy on the organic sector. Okay, great. So these are the latest Eurostat data. And with an increase of more than 70% of the organic land in the last decade, the organic sector can definitely be considered one of the most dynamic agricultural sector in Europe. The European Union accounts for more than 13 million of hectares, almost 14 million hectares, and more than half of these hectares are in of EU organic farmland is in 5 countries. Spain is the first country with 2.2 million hectares, followed by France with 2 million hectares, and Italy, which is about to reach 2 million because it's 1 million and 0.9 hectares of organic farmland. That means that 7.7% of the EU farmland is organic. This is a very important data to keep in mind when we see it also in the perspective of the European Green Deal and of the farm to fork strategy and biodiversity strategy that sets the objective for 2030 to 25% of the EU organic farmland. As you can see, Austria has already 25% of organic farmland cultivated as organics, and followed by Estonia, more than 20%, and Sweden around 10%. 8 countries have already 10% of more of their agricultural land occupied by organics. And if you see the results, the data from last year, we see that 1 million hectare more was reported compared to 2017. That means a plus 8%. And in the last decade, more than 5 million hectares were set to organics from the period 2009-2018. But I also would like to bring your attention on the graph where it shows how this organic land is divided in Europe. So 45% of organic land is occupied by permanent pastures, 45% arable land, and 11% permanent crops. Next slide, please. Next. The organic retail sale worth in 2018 almost more than 37 billion euros. The European Union is the second largest single market after the US, which was 40.5 billion, and it's followed by China, which was 8 billion, with an impressive growth rate. Germany accounts on its own for almost 11 billion euros, and it's surely the country with the largest market. And it's followed by France with 9.1 billion euros, and it has experienced a huge increase in the last years. And in third position, we find Italy by far with 3.1 billion euros. Denmark is the best example of organics in Europe from the spending point of view, because 312 euros are spent per person per year in Denmark. And this huge per capita consumption is followed by Sweden and Luxembourg. 11.5% of the total grocery in Denmark is organic. We can move to the next slide. Now I'm going to give you a quick overview on the latest results of organic imports and the organic imported products compared to 2018. Imports were quite stable in 2019 compared to the previous year, and in fact we just registered a plus 0.4% of increase. 54% of 2019 imports are commodities, which registered a slight decrease of 5.7 compared to the previous year, and 38% of imports are other primary products. We will see later in a bit more detail what does it mean, which increased at plus 9%. You can move to the next one. Of course, the Netherlands is the first importer of all organic products, being also one of the main harbor in Europe, followed by Germany and UK. But I just skip this slide quite quickly, so as you can have it you can have a look on your own afterwards. You can move to the next one. Where do we import from? So first supplier of organic products is China, followed by Ukraine indeed, which represented in 2019 10% of the total imports into the EU, and then Dominican Republic and Ecuador, which of course are main providers of tropical fruit. We can move to the next one. The main exporters to the EU, as I said, is China first. I don't know why the graph is a bit bizarre, but Ukraine is second. And as you can see from the column, cereals, excluding wheat and rice, are the main commodities imported into the EU from Ukraine. As a general information, 10 export countries of organic products to the EU represent 70% of the imports in 2019. You can move to the next slide. Next one. Which product? We mainly import tropical fruits, nuts and spices. 27% of the total imports into the EU are these kind of products, which registered an increase of 13% compared to the previous year. 12% are oil cakes, which is the main product imported from China, which registered plus 13%, and 7% is represented by cereals, excluding wheat and rices, which registered a decrease of 8%. Now we can go to the next slide, and you will have a bit more an overview of what's happening with Ukraine imports. You can move to the next slide. Here I just put some data for you for later on consideration. Taking the imports of organic cereals, which is oilseeds and sugar, which is one of the categories that interest Ukraine the most. But you can move to the next one. Again, organic cereals. Ukraine is the second largest provider of organic cereals, oilseeds, and mainly. And but we can move again to the next one where I have all the detailed explanation of the imports from Ukraine. Also, you can skip this one. Okay, focus on Ukraine. I'm sorry for the graph, which is not really very nice, but I couldn't make it better. So 53% of the total imports from Ukraine are cereals other than wheat and rice. They represent 53%, and as you can see, compared to 40 for the previous year, there is a substantial increase. In fact, previous year it represented 43%. And wheat represents 19% of the total imports from Ukraine, followed by oilseeds other than soybeans. You can move to the next slide. Here we go. So we imported from Ukraine around 337,000 tons. All the data I'm showing you are in tons because, as you might know, these are the data we can collect from the traces system. So unfortunately, we don't have values, but we just have data in tons. In any case, as you can see, the imports from Ukraine increased by 27% compared to the previous year. And in particular, it's important to see that cereal imports, other than wheat and rice, increased by 58%. And you can see there was a slight decrease by 14% of wheat imports. All, with the exception of fruit juice, which is quite a limited quantity imported. For the rest, all the figure registered a positive increase. You can move to the next one. Now let's go a bit more on to what Alisa has already explained you in her very comprehensive presentation. The farm to fork and the biodiversity strategy has set 25% of organic land by 2030. In the last month, sustainability and in particular sustainable agriculture has acquired a substantial political relevance at EU level. First, as said, with the publication of the Green New Deal, the political program of the von der Leyen Commission, and then with the release of the farm to fork and the biodiversity strategy. And as said, both strategies, as it was perfectly explained already by Alisa, they set this 25% of land as organics by 2030. And it's surely an ambitious target, but it's a target that shows that Europe is seriously engaged in striving for more and leading the transition to a more sustainable food system. It's an ambitious target because, as said, currently we are at 7.7% of the total utilized agricultural area, but we have also very different situation in the EU. We have 25% in Austria, as I showed you in the slides, and we have a 2% of the total utilized agricultural area used as organic in Romania. Also, from the consumption point of view, we have two extremes in which we have 312 euros spent per capita per year in Denmark and a few euros in other countries like Poland, Romania, and Bulgaria. We are around 2 to 4 euros per capita per year. So it is a fundamental role to rebalance discrepancies. How to act to get to this target, how to get to reach this target by 2030. As said, in both the farm to fork and the biodiversity strategy, an action plan will be developed. Supply and demand The new action plan is the instrument to pave the way towards this 25% target, and will develop the necessary tools to stimulate the organic sector, not only to contribute to meeting the target, but also to go beyond the mere production rules and requirements and fully embrace the principles enshrined in the organic regulation. This action, supply and demand, production and services, consumption, they all must grow together in order to maintain the sector in a solid equilibrium. Because without this solid equilibrium, there is risk that of depletion of the organic production to the detriment of the organic producers and consumers. Organic farmers have made an effort and made an investment to move towards a sustainable development of European agriculture, and they have the right to be rewarded for this effort. So for this reason, the action plan needs to be structured in a way to respond to this need of equilibrium. On one side, there will be actions to stimulate the uptake of organics at European level through, for instance, the enhancement of the promotion policy, the promote transition to organic canteens by making a wider use of the green public procurement. On the other hand, we need to stimulate the increase of organic land to meet the 25% of target, and as a consequence of the organic offer, and making the most out of the existing instrument of the common agricultural policy to increase production. And in particular, encouraging member states to carefully assess the needs regarding the growth of organics on their territory. They are the best poised to really know how to act to increase the surfaces on their territory. You know that an action plan is not new to the organic sector. This would be the third organic action plan, and from the past plans we have learned a lot, and we have also improved a lot from the many aspects of the organic sector. We have created the electronic certificate of inspection you might be familiar with, which has turned to be a pillar for the traceability of the organic product. We have enhanced research by funding specifically organic through Horizon 2020, and we have triggered anti-fraud activities in Europe. And these results show the power of an action plan that can really concretely bring achievements in the midterm and create foundations for the long term. A public consultation on possible actions will soon be launched, and we are expecting to receive comments and suggestions from many citizens. To achieve long-term results, in any case, the full engagement and the accountability of all the institutions and member states is and stakeholders is very important, and it's really fundamental for the smooth development of an action plan. You can move to the next slide. A few words on the organic regulation, which also is contribute to the target of the 25%. In principle, it should enter into application in 2021. And there are the implementing act on production rule was already published in April, as well as certain related delegated acts. Those acts related to control and trade are in the course of finalization and will be soon published in the course of the year. The added value of the organic regulation also in reaching the target is that an harmonized and simplified regulation will surely create a level playing field and help farmers in converting to organics. Moreover, the introduction of the group certification will also contribute, it will be a huge step forward for small farmers to adhere to the scheme. In fact, as you know, group certifications were only allowed in third countries now, and were like sort of guided through guidelines. But now it's going to be a possibility given to third countries and also to European producers, and this will reduce the burden and facilitate the adherence of small farmers to the scheme, and hence contribute to the target. As you know, one of the step forward from the trade point of view, it will be the compliance to the organic legislation for products produced in third countries. And this is also a very important tool to create a harmonic development of the organic sector, not only in Europe, but all over the world. Just a few words to conclude. You can move to the next slide. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, Ukraine is a solid and growing partner with a huge potential. I think that we really should aim at reinforcing the administrative cooperation in order to work together to preserve the integrity of the organic product. This is really a fundamental message I always want to pass to huge importers, because it's really very important that we work together and we work with the same aim of reinforcing the organic sector as a whole to move towards a global increased sustainable agriculture. That is all from my side. I thank you for your attention, and I just leave a couple of links in the last slide in which you can find a bit further data on the trade of organic in the organic sector. These are two briefings prepared by the European Commission on the imports of organic products. And you can download them and have a look for your consideration. That is all. Thank you.
Щиро дякую, Єлено, за презентацію. Одразу хочу учасникам всім сказати, наголосити на тому, що ми перекладаємо презентації, і незабаром ми надішлемо всім, хто реєструвався, ці презентації в українському варіанті, але також у нас є учасники англомовні, тому таким учасникам ми, відповідно, надішлемо оригінали презентацій. Всі презентації, матеріали всі отримують, будь ласка, не переживайте. Я хочу одразу перейти до нашого третього спікера. Це Сергій Галашевський, директор сертифікаційного органу Organic Standard, який трошки розширить, напевно, наші горизонти і розкаже більше, що ж ми експортуємо і не тільки в Євросоюз, а які ще є в нас ринки збуту органічної продукції. Сергію.
Доброго дня. Сподіваюсь, мене добре чути. Для мене формат теж такий, знаєте, новий. Незвично бачити себе, говорити з собою. Якщо там з звуком якісь проблеми, ви мені, будь ласка, пишіть в чаті. Дякую, Катерина, за представлення. Я тоді не буду затягувати час, відразу переходжу до своєї презентації. Будь ласка, секундочку. Ще раз доброго дня. Моя презентація буде пов'язана не лише з експортом органічної продукції, а ще декілька слайдів підготував про внутрішній ринок. Як то кажуть, не одним експортом живемо. Взагалі хочу трішки пояснити, звідки ці дані і чому ми проводимо такі дослідження. Я представляю орган сертифікації Organic Standard. Як ви знаєте, ми здійснюємо контроль органічного виробництва, зокрема в Україні. І, скажімо так, під час нашої роботи ми постійно проводимо крос-чеки, тобто є інформація, яку ми перевіряємо, це наші клієнти експортують продукцію. Ми намагаємося завжди проводити крос-чеки з іншими різними базами даних, зокрема інформацією по імпорту окремо взяті країни і статистичними даними з України по експорту. І інколи верифікуємося з імпортерами, з органами сертифікації іншими. І таким чином у нас з'являється певний масив даних. Ми вирішили, в принципі, зробимо останні 4 роки ці дані публікувати. Вважаємо, що це буде сприяти прозорості органічного ринку в Україні. Також це буде допомагати нашим клієнтам, операторам органічного ринку України приймати якісь правильні рішення, правильні стратегії. Тобто ми вважаємо, що це корисна інформація. Я представлю в основному дані за 2019 рік, за останній рік, але в деяких моментах буду порівнювати з 2018 роком. Тобто, звичайно, основним покупцем, основним ринком збуту для України є Європейський Союз. Тут, як то кажуть, без сумнівів, це близько біля нас, і туди зорієнтовані більшість наших експортерів. Вже Єлена Панічі представила інформацію про імпорт Європейський Союз, я не буду так багато фокусуватись, мої дані більше будуть узагальнені по всьому світу. Да, ви можете бачити на цих двох діаграмках 18-19 рік, куди експортує Україна свою органічну продукцію. Ви можете бачити, що дані майже не змінилися, вони майже однакові, буквально там невеличкі коливання. Ну, під Європою ми маємо на увазі не лише Європейський Союз, а зокрема там є такі країни, як Швейцарія чи Норвегія. Швейцарія є також одним з важливих ринків для експорту органічної продукції з України. Ви можете побачити, що стабільно тримається Азія в районі 3%. Є в нас інший ринок збуту великий після Європи, це Північна Америка. Це в основному, звичайно, йде Сполучені Штати Америки і Канада. Також минулого року це були одиничні поставки продукції органічної в Австралію та, здається, в Нову Зеландію. А минулого року, тобто позаминулого, минулого року це в нас з'явилася така країна африканська, як Південна Африка, знову ж таки з одиничними поставками молочної продукції. Трішки коментар стосовно стандартів. Звичайно, ми розуміємо, якщо продукція йде на територію Європи, то вона переважно йде за стандартами Європейського Союзу, за регламентами Європейського Союзу. Якщо продукція йде на території Північної Америки, це вона йде за стандартом або американським NOP, або канадським КОР. А якщо продукція у нас експортується в Азію або навіть ту ж саму Африку, в переважній більшості ця продукція йде, знову ж таки, за стандартом Європейського Союзу. Виключення може складає лише Китай, де є в них свої стандарти, які вони потребують сертифікації за своїм стандартом. Окей, серед таких екзотичних країн, які в нас траплялися в списку, є такі країни, як Сейшели, наприклад, знову ж таки, одиничні поставки, до речі, переробленої продукції, тої ж самої молочної продукції. Є там такі країни, як Йорданія, Саудівська Аравія, Об'єднані Арабські Емірати, Південна Корея, тобто це азійські дві країни. Збільшується постійно експорт в Ізраїль, наприклад. Взагалі, Україна експортує в 35 країн світу, причому в минулому році це теж був показник 35 країн. Експортує близько 80 різних товарних позицій. І, до речі, минулого року теж було близько 80. Те, що збільшилось, Україна купують продукцію в Україні органічну. Минулого року це було 236 імпортерів, поза минулого року це було орієнтовно 200. Тобто, в принципі, кількість покупців збільшується. Йдемо далі по слайдам. Так, є. Давайте порівняємо в розрізі 4 років навіть, тобто як збільшувався експорт органічної продукції з України до країн світу. Ви можете бачити, що в принципі по кількості йде постійне зростання. Відразу зроблю такий коментар, що всі ці дані, які ви зараз побачите, вони є оціночними. Тобто вони не можуть бути точними, тому що вони бралися з багатьох джерел, і відповідно може бути якась похибка. Ми допускаємо похибку до 10%. Можу сказати, що 18-19 рік пораховані більш точніше. Знову ж таки, завдяки тому, що з'являються офіційні звіти тої ж самої Європейської комісії про імпорт в Європейський Союз, ми можемо верифікувати отримані наші дані з офіційними даними по імпорту. Це дуже допомагає саме верифікувати дані. Ви бачите, що збільшуються обсяги, ви бачите, що збільшується вартість експортованої продукції з України, що, звичайно, може радувати. Тим не менш, все ж таки хочеться відзначити, що Україна переважно експортує сировину, приклад для нас. І, звичайно, якщо ми там знаходимося на другому місці в Європейському Союзі по експорту продукції, то ми далеко не входимо навіть в десятку по вартості цієї експортованої продукції. Те ж саме стосується у світі, тобто, на жаль, динаміка збільшення обсягів, вона більша, ніж динаміка збільшення вартості реалізованої продукції. Можемо подивитись на топ-10 країн імпортерів української органічної продукції в світі. Ну, звичайно, номер один багато років підряд займає Нідерланди. Ви бачили статистику Європейського Союзу, ця країна не лише в Україні багато купує, вони взагалі багато купують, завозять. Країна, яка багато торгує, яка поширює потім цю продукцію не лише для свого споживання, а переважно навіть для експорту, реекспорту в різні країни Європейського Союзу. Ви можете бачити загальний обсяг, він набагато більший, чим в інших країнах, які займають друге, третє місця відповідно. На другому місці Швейцарія. Швейцарія, в принципі, завжди входила в топ-5. Останні декілька років вона тримається на другому місці, що, в принципі, приємно. Швейцарія – країна, яка є споживачем також органічної продукції, причому таким солідним споживачем, да, можна так сказати, тобто вони досить таки ретельно вибирають постачальників, тому приємно, коли українські компанії є постачальниками в Швейцарії. На третьому місці Сполучені Штати Америки. Я вже казав, що продукція має бути сертифікована по стандарту NOP або стандарту COR, вони між собою є еквівалентними. На четвертому місці Литва. Варто зазначити, що ще декілька років тому Литви не було навіть у десятці. Да? Минулого року вона з'явилася в десятці, маю на увазі минулого року, в 2018 році з'явилася в десятці, в 2019 році вона вже в п'ятірку. Звичайно, ми маємо розуміти, що Литва не споживає переважну більшість тієї продукції, яку вона імпортує з України. Тобто це країна, яка потім реекспортує цю продукцію в інші країни Європейського Союзу. Німеччина вперше, скажімо так, на п'ятому місці опинилась. Традиційно Німеччина входила в трійку. В попередні роки ще раніше конкурувала навіть з Нідерландами по купівлі з України, да, але зараз вперше вона на п'ятому місці опинилася. Знову ж таки, та країна, яка і споживає багато органічної продукції сама, і так само потім реекспортує в інші країни. Великобританії переважно йдуть сировина для виробництва кормів з України. Австрія, варто відмітити, теж завжди країна знаходиться в десятці. Польща, країна-сусід, знову ж таки, ми розуміємо, що це в тому числі реекспорт, да, тобто сусідні країни з України, вони через себе виступають такими хабами. Не є, напевно, ні для кого секрет, що введення додаткових заходів контролю при експорті з України органічної продукції стимулювало до того, що багато наших компаній українських почали відкривати дочірні підприємства, філіали в сусідніх країнах для того, щоб забезпечити самостійно процес експорту в Європейський Союз, так як стикалися з тим, що імпортери не дуже, скажімо так, з великою охотою, великим бажанням хочуть проходити різні ці бар'єри, які пов'язані з імпортом з України. Тим не менш, якби, хоч бар'єри присутні, ми бачимо, що експорт в Європейський Союз зростає. В принципі, десятка країн, яку ви бачите, вона плюс-мінус залишається стабільною. Я казав за Литву, що з'явилися зміни. Якісь країни випадають, з'являються, такі як Угорщина, Румунія, наприклад. Да? Тобто ці країни десь там знаходяться поряд, да? Інколи Чехія і так далі. Добре, рухаємося далі. Я думаю, що тут все, що хотів, сказав. По топ-10 експортованих органічних продуктів з України. Ну, ви можете бачити, що на першому місці кукурудза, да, тобто цей продукт набагато більше експортується за інші продукти. Хочу сказати, що експорт кукурудзи з України в 2019 році в порівнянні з 2018 роком виріс більше на 50%. Я, до речі, в мене був тут слайд, я не знаю, чи він не бачу. Ну, добре. Тобто кукурудза є номер один, експорт її за останній рік зріс більше ніж на 50%. Інші продукти, які ви бачите, пшениця, соя, соняшник, взагалі ця четвірка цих продуктів, кукурудза, пшениця, соя, соняшник, це традиційні лідери протягом останніх 4 років. Це можу сказати з певністю, але можу сказати, що в 2019 році в порівнянні з 2018, наприклад, експорт сої залишився таким самим, як був, експорт соняшника залишився таким самим, як був, на тому ж самому абсолютно рівні, експорт пшениці трішечки зменшився, а кукурудзи виріс, як я вже казав, на 50%. Крім того, варто відмітити позитивний момент, що в десятці присутні деякі перероблені продукти, да? Тобто це олія соняшникова, зокрема, ну і чорниця заморожена. Звичайно, умовно перероблена чорниця, да, вона просто заморожена, тим не менш, свіжа, напевно, коштує піддорожче, але то інший момент. І макуха, до речі, можете бачити. До речі, макуха теж зросла за останній рік на 300%. Тобто було, здається, 2200 тонн експортовано минулого року, зараз експортовано більше. Від 2019 року, да, втричі фактично. Що ще з такого цікавого? Йдемо далі в інший слайд. Ага, от, власне, цю інформацію хотів вам показати. Це динаміка за останні 4 роки в розрізі 4 основних продуктів. Ви можете бачити те, що я казав, що соняшник, соя за останні 2 роки не змінився, власне, експорт, а от дуже значно виріс експорт кукурудзи, так, ми бачимо цю динаміку. Взагалі, я б сказав навіть так, що Україна, власне, і потрапила з 4-го місця на 2-е місце в Європейському Союзі саме завдяки різкому скачку експорту кукурудзи, тому що по всім іншим продуктам спостерігається стабільність або дуже легке коливання там в плюс. Так? В плюс, я вже казав, там макуха, чи льон, наприклад, там значніші, чи горох значніші коливання. Але в більшості продуктів там різниця 5-10% коливання, що в принципі теж говорить про певну стабільність. І, напевно, це нормально. Так, скажу окремо за перероблену продукцію. Да? Хочеться, щоб Україна продавала все-таки більше переробленої продукції з доданою вартістю, щоб ми не лише були в топі на 2-му місці по обсягам, а з'являлися хоча б в топі в десятці по вартості, да? Зокрема в Європейський Союз. Серед тих продуктів, що експортуються перероблені, це, зокрема, вже відзначені ми раніше олія соняшникова, яблучний концентрат. До речі, і олія, і яблучний концентрат – це ті продукти, які експортуються не лише в Європейський Союз, а, зокрема, їх можна побачити в Сполучених Штатах Америки, навіть в Канаді. Тобто це продукти, які, і до речі, в Азію теж олія соняшникова експортується. Ну, Україна відома олією, це бренд, да, і тому, напевно, до нас звертається, як до країни, саме за цим продуктом, і тому він поширений по різним країнам. І в Кореї, до речі, в Японії, здається, були поставки, тому є таке. До речі, за Японію скажу, що там теж потрібен японський сертифікат JAS, да, тобто імпорт відбувається тільки при наявності цього сертифікату. Пшоно, можу сказати впевнено, що Україна є основним експортером Європейський Союз пшона. Цей продукт свого часу був, скажімо так, завойований, да, українськими експортерами, і дуже приємно відзначати. Хоча я помічаю, що обсяги експорту, на жаль, трішечки падають. Були вони і доходили до 5 тисяч тонн окремі роки, зараз менше. Цукор з'явився, да, раніше цукру не було. Україна різко ввірвалася, скажімо так, в топ по цукру. Дуже такий специфічний продукт, непростий його виготовити, виробити, да, в органічній якості. Тим не менше, в Україні є підприємство, ну, взагалі там одне підприємство, досить крупне, яке змогло це зробити, організувати виробництво, вирощувати цукровий буряк і організувати виробництво цукру. Ну і далі пішла переважно зернова група. Це переробка, зокрема, спельти, переробка вівса, переробка гречки. Да. Насправді ці продукти мали б набагато більші можливості для експорту в Європейський Союз, якби не додаткові заходи контролю. Саме додаткові заходи контролю, вони в першу чергу б'ють по переробленій продукції, тому що її кількість, що її експортується, насправді менша набагато від великих сировинних партій. Да? І, відповідно, вартість здорожчання аналізів, всіх тих випробувань, які потрібно пройти, воно набагато більше. І незаслужено перероблена продукція потрапляє, на мою думку, під додаткові заходи контролю, зокрема зернова група. Томатна паста, ви можете бачити, сік березовий теж дуже цікавий український продукт, який експортується в багато країн, і не лише Європейського Союзу. Так. Ну, я вже казав, що, як то кажуть, не експортом єдиним, да, тобто, звичайно, більшість операторів органічного ринку України зорієнтовані на експорт. Я би оцінив це близько там 70-80% операторів в Україні, вони бажають на якомусь етапі, щоб продукція пішла на експорт, але в той же час є досить вагома частка операторів в Україні, знову ж таки 20-30%, які зорієнтовані на внутрішній ринок. Да? І внутрішній ринок в Україні розвивається. Я вам покажу деякі цифри. Да? Тобто у нас є безумовний лідер по обсягам, по продажу всередині України, це молочна продукція. Я думаю, в багатьох країнах так само це відбувається. Тобто зараз приходиш в супермаркет, ну, зокрема в Києві, і ти можеш не просто знайти органічну молочку, ти можеш вибрати між трьома, наприклад, брендами, да, яка тобі більше подобається. Молочка займає 63% в обсягах. На другому місці в нас круп'яні зернові вироби. Я потім іншим слайдом покажу конкретні цифри. Це для загального розуміння, які відсотки складають у нас яка продукція по обсягам реалізації. На другому місці круп'яні та зернові вироби, борошно, насіння, тобто бакалійка, так звана, там, ну, трішечки вужче, ніж бакалійка. Далі в нас ідуть овочі та фрукти для внутрішнього споживання. І трошечки менші відсотки пішли соки, напої, пасти, м'ясна продукція, прянощі, спеції, цукор, яйця, олія, морозиво та багато іншого. Ну, зверніть увагу на ці перші три категорії, які, в принципі, складають основу внутрішнього органічного ринку в Україні. І це по обсягам реалізації, це по вартості реалізації. Знову ж таки, да, молочка на першому місці, круп'яні на другому, далі овочі та фрукти. Але в той же час там деякі ніші зростають, зокрема там морозиво можна побачити одразу, бо продукт з доданою вартістю він одразу займає свою відповідну нішу в цій діаграмі. Ну і так далі. Да, не буду я зараз фокусуватися. Давайте подивимося більш детально на цю таблицю. Тут порівняння. Ми в 2018 році вперше нам вдалося порахувати внутрішній ринок України. Знову ж таки, це оціночні дані, я про це завжди кажу. Ну, я вважаю, що ми дуже до цього підійшли так ретельно і дуже великий обсяг роботи зробили. Зараз з'явилися вже дані за 2019 рік, і ми можемо бачити проводити якусь порівняння, бачити якісь тенденції. Знову ж таки, ці дані, буквально там на днях ми завершили їх, скажімо так, отримали ці дані, вони ще будуть декілька разів верифікуватися. Це такі попередні дані, хочу зробити цю ремарку, але дуже хотілося вам сьогодні показати вже якісь конкретні цифри. Тобто ви бачите, що в принципі, ви бачите кількості, да? Я не буду їх там озвучувати конкретно на внутрішньому ринку. Ви бачите продажі в мільйонах гривень, ви можете бачити тенденцію, що, наприклад, в принципі, продажі в окремих продуктах зростають, а в окремих вони, ну, скажімо, ну, в основному зростають, да? Хоча є там окремі випадки, коли щось зменшується, да? На жаль. Але ми бачимо переважно по всім позиціям вони, майже по всім позиціям вони зростають. Я маю на увазі обсяги реалізації, в принципі, і навіть по продажам, да, теж зростають. І в кількісному, і в вартісному виразі. Я, напевно, не буду проходити по кожному продукту. Я не можу там охарактеризувати причини, чому там якийсь продукт підвищився, чому він впав. Це, як то кажуть, сухі дані, суха статистика, яка теж багато кому цікава. У мене, в принципі, все по цій презентації. Хочу сказати, що дане дослідження, яке ми проводимо, воно проводиться в рамках проєкту дослідження органічного ринку та підтримується в партнерстві з Зеленим досьє і підтримується дослідним інститутом органічної сільськогосподарської та Швейцарської федерації. Дякую за увагу. Якщо якісь будуть потім запитання, будь ласка, звертайтеся.
Дякую, Сергію. Тепер в нас буде можливість після всіх презентацій ставити питання нашим учасникам. Насправді, ви коли заповнювали реєстраційні форми, ви всі бачили таку опцію поставити питання завчасно, і дуже багато хто якраз надав свої питання, ми їх обробили, і деякі з цих питань я хочу якраз задати одразу нашим учасникам. Єлена нам розповіла про статус нового органічного регламенту, який має бути запроваджений вже з наступного року, та ключові позиції. Питання, Єлено, було ще від учасників, на яких основних які основні відмінності є нового регламенту від чинного?
I will answer to this question. Okay, good. So compared to the current regulation, the new regulation is not, of course, reinventing the wheel, meaning that the organic regulation is already founded on solid principles and objectives. Nevertheless, this regulation really harmonizes the organic sector as such. Why? Because the current regulation is very much based on some flexibility that was given in the past to allow the development of the organic sector. So there were many derogations that could be given, could be granted case by case, could be granted in one country or the other. So there was not really an harmonized approach to the organic production. Now, this new regulation has another approach. Harmonization is the baseline in which all the farmers or the producers are subject to the same rules. There is the possibility to activate derogations, but if it's the case, this derogation can be applicable everywhere in Europe. First thing, this creates a level playing field and a fair competition among producers all over the EU. Not only, of course, with the introduction of the compliance to the European rules, also third countries will need to apply European rules to produce for the European market. Of course, this can sound a bit strange for third countries, but it is not, because when we did the impact assessment for the preparation of this regulation, we really saw that the differences, the discrepancies between the rules applied in third countries and the rules applied in Europe were very limited to substances, in particular when it comes to the purpose of controlling plagues in tropical countries. But of course, there are provisions in the new regulation which allow the certain provisions for substances which are not commonly used in Europe. But also, when these substances will be, of course, substances which are compatible with the organic agriculture principles, when these substances will be allowed, they will be allowed everywhere, also in Europe. So for all European producers, for third countries producers, and for all the third countries producers which are willing to send to the EU. Another very important issue is the simplification, because as I said during the presentation, there is a new element which is added, which is the possibility for European farmers to enter into a group certification scheme. That means that many farmers that are now excluded from the system because they consider that going through a certification system is too costly, too burdensome, they will be able to get to groups and really join the scheme together. Also, from the control point of view, we have introduced a sort of risk-based approach to make it more in line with the fishery control regulation. That means that, bearing in mind the principle of a yearly visit every year, those operators which do fully comply with the regulation and which are, let's say, set in a list of member states risk assessment group, they can be exempted from 1 year on the spot visit. This is to make easier the life of farmers which are regularly complying the European legislation. And of course, as I said, the new feature is the compliance, and also some other rules for processing will be introduced, in particular with regard to the authorization of non-organic ingredients which are used in the organic farm. So basically, the issue is that we put some order in the regulation to create a level playing field and to really strengthen the organic sector. Then I see that there is another question: which changes we could expect because of farm-to-fork implementation for Ukraine suppliers? I guess that you, well, I don't know if Alisa wants first to introduce her point of view, or I just give a few words on organics, because I guess that you refer to the 25% targets, I guess. Well, of course, I think that this 25% target should be seen as an opportunity for everybody, not only for European producers, but because, as I said, the action plan will really be an occasion to boost consumption. Organic consumption is growing in Europe. Organic consumption is a reality, and you could see that year by year there is a huge increase in spending for organic. There is still a huge potential. If you see the discrepancies that I showed you in the picture in my presentation, you have countries which have a relatively high spending per capita for the organic, have a relatively high grocery percentage as organic products, but we are still at 11-12% of the total grocery in Denmark. You have to see the broader picture at European level. So we don't have aggregate level at European level on the spending, but if you think that as average per capita in Europe is around 70 euro per person, and we have such a discrepancy, then we really need to boost consumption all over Europe and create opportunities for the organic sector as such. Not to forget that, I mean, the 25% is a target that is has to be seen in under two perspectives. On one side, under the biodiversity perspective, and on the other side, under the farm-to-fork perspective. So if you see that 45% of the total utilized agricultural area is dedicated to pastures, I think that it gives you an idea that the sector is growing both in pastures and arable land. So a huge promotion of organic farming is really fundamental for the growth of the organic sector as a whole. I let the floor to Alisa.
Yes, thank you very much, Elena. I think you have more or less already covered the ground. So I think what you said is really, we look from the farm to fork perspective, we look at this, we look at the opportunities that this brings not only to Europe, but also to our neighbors and globally. So I think you have perfectly covered that question.
Дякую. Наступне питання в чаті. Цікаве питання нам надійшло щойно щодо можливості сертифікації комах. Чи є відповідний розділ в новому регламенті?
Insect certification, it's work in progress. I mean, you know that I will soon be covered, but we are waiting first also for the horizontal legislation to cover fully insect for human nutrition. Now we have only insects for animal nutrition. So it will be developed in the next years.
Наступне питання. Звісно, що наші всі органічні оператори переживають за можливі риски, які можуть виникнути в зв'язку із запровадженням стратегії від ферми до виделки і запровадженням, власне, нового регулювання. Чи бачите ви якісь риски для українських постачальників?
I guess that you refer to the risk for Ukraine operator, not on insect certification, which is, but it's for the world development. As I say, I don't see risk. I see opportunities for everybody, and it's really important that all the public, we work together with the public administrations to reinforce and to really empower the organic sector on both sides to give these opportunities for everybody, to everybody, because really consumption should be the driver of this growth, and consumption really can strengthen organic sector. The increase of consumption can really strengthen the organic sector and give opportunities to everybody.
Дякую. Ще таке питання. Чи буде можливим долучитись органічним виробникам до програм, інструментів, які будуть запроваджуватися в Європейському Союзі?
I'm back again. Yeah, I think that Christian Ben is the best place there to give you indications of this. I'm outside my competencies. Can you hear? Hello, hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hear me? I think. Yeah, okay. So again, what will we be implementing here how we are going to develop this action plan? It's already, let's say, more, as I said, I mean, still sort of ideas that we're putting together. It will be rather promotion money. It will be rather, so these are, let's say, more funding for from a European perspective. But I guess that through the cooperation channels that you will be able to focus on money that could be used as an instrument for Ukraine operators to develop the organic sector.
Дякую, Єлено, дякую, колеги. Я думаю, що на цьому ми будемо наразі завершувати. Перепрошую за якісь технічні збої, які сталися в нас протягом ефіру. Всі вчимося працювати онлайн. Я думаю, що якщо в наших учасників виникнуть інші запитання, ви завжди можете до нас звернутися, і ми спробуємо віднайти на них відповіді. І сподіваємося, що інформація, отримана сьогодні всіми нами, буде корисною для нашої спільної подальшої роботи. Дякую колегам з Європейської комісії, нашим проєктам та представникам міністерства за участь. Крістіан, можливо, ви хочете сказати щось на заключення? Чи Сергій?
I can just thank the organizer and the ministry for having participated, for having organized this event. I think what was shared about the farm to fork strategy and the Green Deal by our colleagues from DG Agri was of much value to us in Ukraine. And I hope that the participants have learned a lot about the access to support within the frame of the bilateral cooperation, as mentioned by Yelena. The European Union is indeed thinking about putting in place grant schemes to support small farms and very small farms and their development in Ukraine. This grant scheme may be up and running in the course of 2021, and organic farming will definitely be part of the target for the support. And the European Union and the European Union delegation will, of course, continue to be committed to support the governments and any gaps that have to be filled in, and provide the technical assistance necessary to get always closer to the change that are operated in the European Union, and thereby basically support what Alisa and Yelena have mentioned about basically this cooperation that is needed between the European Union and Ukraine in order to basically increase the production and the demand in organic products. I give the floor maybe back to you. Thank you very much again for this event, and thank you very much for the participants that have basically stayed with us for almost for 2 hours now.
Okay, thank you everyone for being with us. Just to answer some of the questions, most of materials have been already translated. I mean, the strategy itself and the first presentation. We are to finalize the second presentation and to translate perhaps a very interesting Sergei's presentation into English. As soon as proofreading is ready, Katrina will send both languages versions to every participant of today's event. And thank you very much for being with us. I think it's quite a record that we had 87 in the middle, but at the moment we have got still 62 people with us. It means that we have got people that are interested in the problem that was discussed today, and that with this interest we definitely will move forward. Thank you very much. Have a nice day and keep safe. Bye.
До побачення.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Так, ти там що, кажи, до свидання, пішли? Я завис.